Chapter 3 is our longest chapter, where we talk about the second of the 5 IT infrastructure library books called Service Design. In this chapter, we have 9 lessons. Lesson 1 is an overview of the book, where we'll discuss the purpose of service design and also provide some service design-related vocabulary and groundwork. Lesson 2 is where we'll introduce service catalog management, a process dedicated to managing this critical portion of the larger service portfolio. Lesson 3 is our longest lesson, which describes the process of service level management, which is a cornerstone of the IT infrastructure library and your IT service management implementation as a whole. In Lesson 4, we'll pick up the pace a bit and introduce capacity management, which goes hand in hand with the service strategy process of demand management. Lesson 5 introduces availability management and contains some vocabulary you'll likely see on the exam. Lesson 6 introduces the IT service continuity management process, which is our fancy way of saying disaster recovery. Lesson 7 will cover some information security management terms and concepts, and Lesson 8 will quickly round out the processes with an introduction to supplier management. As always, we'll conclude our chapter with a series of sample questions, which we'll review in Chapter 9. Lesson 1 is our service design overview. On the left, you'll see our trusty service lifecycle ball. If you remember our story from Service Strategy, I asked you to envision a group of lawyers who just graduated law school. These folks decided, while sitting in a diner, to start up their own law firm. The lawyers wrote down some of their needs and business requirements on the back of a diner placemat. The list says, we need computers for our 25 employees, and we'll also need the ability to print, we'll need email, and we'll need internet access, and it can't cost more than $75,000. You'll notice that this list of requirements is in business person speak, not techie speak. This list of requirements is the key output of the service strategy phase. Oh, and chances are in the service strategy phase, the lawyers have also hired some IT people. Now, in our current phase, the service design phase, it's now IT's job to take these business requirements and challenges on the diner placemat that we got from service strategy and design a solution that will satisfy the requirements of the business. So if the business requirements said, we need computers and internet access and emails and printers not to exceed $75,000, it's up to us now in IT to figure out what kinds of computers to buy, what email application to choose, and what printers to ultimately purchase. Now notice that we're not buying or building anything in this service design phase, we're just designing the solution. After we have our design completed, we'll pass it off to the service transition phase, where the necessary items will be purchased, configured, tested, and installed. So now you have an idea of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going next in the service lifecycle. To the right, you'll see a picture of the service design book in case you want to pick up a copy. Lesson 1 has 7 main objectives. First, we'll need to cover the goals and objectives of the service design phase. Next, we'll cover how the service design phase benefits the business. We'll also cover the 5 aspects of service design, meaning the 5 things we design in the service design phase. We'll also introduce the concept of the service design package, and we'll learn about the responsibilities of the service design manager. We'll also learn about the 4 Ps, which help ensure a balanced design. And lastly, we'll briefly cover some things to consider while automating your designs if you choose to. Why does the business care if we have a service design phase? What's the value in it? Well, first off, if we take our time in the service design phase, the chances of the business achieving their business objectives once the service goes live in service operation is greatly increased because the services will operate as we designed them. Implementation of new or changed services is easier because these changes have been designed well. In addition, our service management processes, as well as our own internal processes, will be more effective because we've taken the time to design them here in service design. The service design phase also helps ensure that the services we ultimately deliver in the service operation phase have a means to be measured because we've carefully designed the metrics we'll pull once the service goes live. And if all aspects of the services, processes, and technology are designed properly, and subsequently implemented properly, of course, we can ultimately reduce our total cost of ownership. Now you'll notice that this bullet here is in bold, And I've bolded it because this one is especially tricky to remember. It's not very intuitive, and you'll need to know this whole list for the exam. The main objective of service design is simply to design the IT services along with their associated processes and policies so that they satisfy the business requirements that we received from service strategy. The key output or goal of service design is this giant design document called the Service Design Package, which will ultimately hand off to the service transition phase of the life cycle. We'll talk more about the Service Design Package 2 slides from now. In service design, we focus on designing 5 main aspects, or items, with the goal of satisfying the needs and requirements of the business. So the input to service design is, of course, the output of service strategy, which is the set of new or changed business requirements. The 5 things we design in service design are: first, we design the service solutions for new or changed services. And this entails identifying the business requirements, defining the service requirements, and then, of course, designing the services end to end, including all the functional requirements and the resources and capabilities that are needed and agreed to. Next, we're going to design the service management systems and tools, especially the service portfolio and the service catalog, and whatever other tools you'll need to manage your IT service management implementation. Number 3 says that we're going to design the technology, the architecture, and the systems to manage it all. That means that we're going to design the actual meat and potatoes techie stuff. So if one of the services we need to design is email, this is where we're going to figure out what email platform we're going to choose, how many servers we're going to need to deliver it, how these servers connect to each other, how do they connect to the core switch, where do they fit into the rack, all that other stuff. Number 4 is we're going to design all of the processes required to run all this stuff. And when we say design the processes, we mean designing the idle processes, but we also mean designing all those other processes that your organization uses. Like, hey, we need a process for getting a new employee on board. That's not an idle process, but that's a process that you're going to need in your IT organization. You are going to design that process here in the service design phase. And the 5th thing we're going to design is the measurement methods and metrics. Ultimately, when this service is up and running in the service operation phase, we have a way to measure it. Has this ever happened to you? A manager approaches you and says, hey, I need a report that shows me this, 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 and this. Can you get it to me by Tuesday? And you think to yourself, no, I can't. Number 1, our tools aren't configured to spit out that data. And number 2, even if they were, we're not currently capturing it. And number 3, we don't even have the right tool to compile that data and present it. Well, if we knew on day 1, here at the design phase, that this manager was going to need that type of report, we would make sure that we would bake right into this design the ability to pull out that report come the day that this went live. The outputs of the service design phase of the life cycle are A, a service solution that's designed to meet the documented needs of the business. Where did we get those documented needs of the business? From the service strategy phase. And then B, a service design package, which again is just a giant design document that we hand off to the service transition phase where this service will then be built and implemented. For the exam, you're going to need to remember the 5 aspects of service design here in the gray box. And a way to remember it is it spells out the word stamp if you put these aspects in a certain order. So we have S for services, T for tools, A for architecture, and then we skip one, we go to M for measurement methods and metrics, and then P for processes. So if you put those together, they spell stamp. So that might be one way that you can remember the 5 aspects of service design. Think of the service design package as a giant design document that contains everything service transition will need to build, test, and implement the service. And it also contains everything service operation will need to operate and maintain the service once it goes live. The service design package also contains all of the reports, the targets, and the measurement methods and metrics so we can pull these metrics in service operation, but analyze them and then improve the service once we get to the continual service improvement phase of the life cycle. A service design package is produced for every new IT service that we're bringing live, any major change to an existing service, or any time we need to retire an IT service. The only time we don't need a service design package is when we have a true emergency change. We'll talk more about that when we get to change management in the service transition phase of the life cycle. Think of the service design package, like I said before, as a blueprint that contains everything needed to build, test, implement, and run this service. So if you need a house built, you're going to hire an architect and they're going to create this blueprint for your new house. And here at this design phase is where you're going to say, I want this room to be a little bit bigger, or no, I want an extra bathroom over here. This is where you're going to hack that all out. And once you have your blueprint finalized, you hand that blueprint, your service design package, off to your home builder, and they will then build your house according to the design. So think of service transition as the phase where we're building the house, and service design as the phase where we're designing the blueprint. It's up to a person called the service design manager to compile the service design package. Let's take a look at some of these duties. The service design manager is, first, responsible for the coordination and deployment of quality solution designs for services and also for processes. This service design manager is also responsible for ensuring that service strategies are reflected in the service design practice. Also, from a 40,000-foot level, the service design manager makes sure that all the processes that go into the service design phase, and again, there are 7 of them, to make sure that all of these processes are working together to create a quality service design package. So think of your service design manager as an orchestra conductor and the person who gets everyone working together to create a service design package. The more complete our service design package is, the easier the service transition phase will be, and the more effective the service operation will be. Many designs, plans, and projects fail due to a lack of preparation and management. The implementation of IT service management, or ITIL, as a practice is about preparing and planning the effective and efficient use of these 4 Ps. Our first P stands for people, which means that we need to have the right people in the right jobs, and they need to have the right skills. It also means we have to design our teams to be the right size to do the work that's assigned to them. Our second P, processes, means that we have to have processes in place to manage the work we do, and these processes need to be constantly evolving and maturing. They should all have process owners assigned, RACI charts written, and metrics to measure the progress, effectiveness, efficiency, and cost of running the process. The third P stands for products, by which we mean the tools, technology, and services necessary to do our jobs. How can you drill a hole if you don't have a drill? Our fourth P stands for partners, which means the vendors or suppliers we use to provide services to the business. Most IT organizations require the services or supplies from external vendors, and when designing our service solutions, we should think to either include or exclude these vendors. You'll need to know these 4 Ps for the exam, and you can memorize them in any order you wish. If you can remember the statement here at the bottom of the slide that says, the implementation of IT service management as a practice is about preparing and planning the effective and efficient use of the 4 Ps, as well as memorizing these 4 Ps, you'll be all set. Some people choose to automate portions of their design. When you are designing a service, or a portion of a service, using automated systems, processes, and resources can definitely make your life easier. However, a good rule of thumb is only automate processes that are truly ready for it. Processes that are repeatable, have very few errors or exceptions, those are the good candidates for automation. Also remember that, and this comes from the ITIL books, that a fool with a tool is still a fool.